Hello, Jesse Colton here on a dreary day in Nashville, Tennessee. The U.S. men's soccer team just lost to the Netherlands. Shame for the boys in the red, white, and blue. But here we are talking about Path of Exile again. I just wanted to share my excitement and also share some thoughts, maybe a little bit of criticism. So I have been through the patch notes. I have seen all the reveal stuff. I watched all of the Q&A. I've seen basically every piece of official content that the Path of Exile team, Grinding Gear Games, have published. So let's jump into some thoughts. The game was not changed as much as I would have liked. That's like my overall take here. My big picture. What are Jesse's thoughts? What was Jesse's opinion? The big picture here is that I think they could have done a little bit more. I think some other content creators have shared that same sentiment, frankly, and I think a lot of the community has. But there are a couple things specifically that we'll talk about. So curses were changed and improved, so that should make the game a little bit easier. The game last past couple patches, just because of the rare monster changes, arch nemesis changes, the game's been very difficult, and it's turned a lot of players off. Last patch in particular, last league in particular, had really notably bad player retention, and I think it's because the game was a lot harder, and part of that was by design. They wanted the game to be more difficult, but they improved curses to make the game a little bit easier, I think, overall, and I think will smooth out the difficulty curve for bosses. And they changed Arch Nemesis, which is the rare modifier system that a lot of people were complaining about, including myself. So they changed it, and man, a huge weight has been lifted, because there was some paranoia that they would double down. But they didn't. They backed out. That's what I keep talking about in these videos and past videos, where like Ice Frog and Dota 2, the Dota 2 game balance, good example, where they will roll shit back. If it doesn't work, they roll it back. And I think GGG kind of more or less rolled it back to the way it used to be. So excellent. So let's talk about player balance here. A couple of the most powerful skills and most abusable mechanics have been nerfed, have been reeled back, and theoretically this puts most things on a level playing field. And in addition, they added some new skill gems and they buffed some unique items. But this is like what I really want to talk about here, is the things that were not changed. Because the changes that they made, all well and good. They pulled back some player power that was maybe a little too severe. No direct buffs to underused skill gems. A lot of people have been talking about this. There's been a lot of Reddit discussion and all this. I would have loved to see some. I was actually shocked that there was nothing. No numerical changes to the heavy strikes and the shock novas of the world. These skill gems that are just bad. The skill gems that are just straight up not good. They're not good enough to be played. And so I'm amazed that they didn't at least make numerical changes. Because here's the thing, like, I've talked about this in past videos too. My take and my ideas on this are very simple, very concrete. You should always make small numerical adjustments, because numerical adjustments theoretically are a lot easier to make than doing whole skill and archetype overhauls, which I think in some case, the game needs that too. The game needs whole skill reworks, but in the absence of skill reworks, if you want to reduce the amount of pressure and development work, just make numerical changes. Make changes where all somebody needs to do is click into the number and type 210 instead of 190. And maybe that's a lot of work. Maybe I'm understating how much work that is. Maybe it's a ton of work. I don't know how their skill gem stuff works, but the gems that are just bad, I just wish the damage effectiveness and things like that were just a little bit better. because it's not going to change the meta. It's just not. The way this game is, the way it's designed, there are a lot of skills that can work, that can make it to the end game. That was true for this past league and leagues before that, and it will be true this upcoming league. You can play a lot of gems, but a lot of the skill gems are just not good. They're just not very good. That's the reason that they're at the bottom of the list. I would have liked to see them at least do it for like 4 or 5 gems. I mean, Cleave +2 radius last league, that was kind of a meme and people made a big joke about it. And it was a huge troll job by the community about how Cleave needs a lot more than +2 radius to be playable. But the truth is that I actually like to see that a lot better than what I'm seeing here, which is nothing. A big goose egg, literally nothing. And maybe they think that the changes to Arch Nemesis and the changes to curses are so profound and game shifting that they're not going to touch anything else. They're going to let it ride. And I think that's their mindset, but I'm a disagree guy right now. It's not what I wanted to see. No changes to Warcry clunkiness. This is next point. Warcries, I play slam builds every league. I'm a slam player. And if you're not going to buff the skill gems, whatever, you're not going to buff the ascendancies, at least make some minor improvements to Warcries. Because right now, a Warcry build, in order to even feel playable, has to use like 6 or 7 active skills. You have to click 5 buttons, get yourself set up to do a slam, and then you do a slam. And in that time, a Spark build has already killed the pack and moved on to the next pack in the time that you did your whole fucking MMO skill rotation. And it's so profoundly inefficient. And it's a really, really inefficient way to play modern PoE. It just is. Warcries are really bad. And slams are really bad. And there's, you know, there are some nuance and edge cases, like Rage Vortex actually can do an insane amount of damage. So there's some boss killing potential and stuff, but it's not comparable to the Lightning Arrow Deadeyes and the, I don't know, Poison BV occultists that go into cold BV that blow up whole screens or whatever. There are just better archetypes than slams. And maybe that's just the nature of this game. Maybe it's the nature of this action RPG, the way that how fast it is and how everything needs to explode in order for you to clear a map correctly. So, but I would have loved to see, personally, some improvements to the Warcry masteries, some improvements to the Warcry nodes on the skill tree. Like, make something go from 15% Warcry speed to 20%. Even some little shit like that is just enough huffing copium for a slam player like me to say, oh, that's good now, even though it's not. I know the change, the improvement that you're going to make, GGG, is not going to fix slam builds. They're still not good. But who knows? Maybe more people will play it. Just a tiny fraction percent more. Because if you look on PoE Ninja, SSF Hardcore, and Trade League, you will not see a lot of slam builds that go past level 90 after the first few days. You just don't. They're all Rage Vortex or fucking Ballista Totem builds. Who knows? So anyways, no changes to mana builds. I'm not going to redo my entire video that I already did. I have another YouTube video about mana builds. Mana builds also need tangible improvements in the skill tree itself. They need more percentage mana. They need more mana regeneration. They need better mana-based masteries. Right now, in order for a mana build to feel playable, it needs like a level 99 character in order to feel playable. Every single skill point is insanely valuable, and you don't have enough skill points in order for it to feel playable, frankly, because you need clusters too. Same with Warcry, you need clusters. So you got to fix the tree for mana builds. If you're not gonna buff them at the base level, you're not gonna buff the whole game around mana, then you need to at least buff the skill tree itself and the ascendancies. No changes to underused ascendancies. I'll just give a quick example because I know I've been talking about this whole video. Let's go to this is the Gladiator. I was ready to talk about this. Okay, one of the least played ascendancies in the game. GGG. You don't have to completely rework this thing. You don't have to change everything. You can, in fact, keep it the exact fucking same, but just make little small improvements to like little nodes here and there. Violent retaliation, I don't know. Hits and ignore enemy monster physical damage reduction. You don't even need to add the conditional if you've blocked. People still aren't going to play it. No one's going to play this over champion. But you can add it, and maybe a couple more people will, and it'll make the game just that much more balanced, just a little bit more balanced. You don't have to rework the entire ascendancy. You can just make little numerical improvements. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't even play gladiators. The other example is Chieftain. I love this ascendancy, and I am stunned that you didn't change this at all. Nothing. You gave it dick. And like, look at some of these nodes. These are just so bad compared to like the Elementalist or the Inquisitor nodes. They're just not good. GGG, they're just not as good. I don't know what you add to this. You just add one extra line that gives, I don't know, fucking more damage or increased damage if you don't want to buff it too much. This one, another great example. Give it more placement speed, or give it deal 20% less damage, because even with that, all right, that's a lot, but like little statistical improvements will still put this a little bit further up than it currently is. But no one is gonna, even if you make these changes, it's still not as good as Elementalist. It's just not even close. Not as good of a totem build as Hierophant, and not as good of an Ignite build as Elementalist, not as good of a Slam build as Berserker. It is a bad ascendancy, period. So you can afford to make these little numerical changes. Okay, I've said my piece about this. Now we can finally talk about the other stuff. Ancestor Totem QL improved. I do appreciate that. That's lovely. That's like the tiniest melee changes. I don't play strike skills, so I didn't include the strike thing on this list. If you play Flicker Strike and you want to get Splash, they also did that. Unique jewels removed. This did pertain to me, so I had to write it. They removed the hot-headed jewels and a few others that I used quite a bit. They removed a lot of unique jewels. A lot of them are like build-enabling type jewels, which is super sad for someone like me who re-rolls to unique and interesting, unusual, abnormal, off-meta builds, right? Ailment mitigation jewels improved. This, I don't even have time to talk about this. There's a whole other balancing discussion around ailments right now, where in order for the game to feel playable, you have to just not take any ailments as a character. Like, you can't get frozen for the game to feel playable. So you basically have to have a way to 100% avoid and not be frozen, which I think is a little bit of bad game design, maybe, like a little bit. It's either all or nothing on that, but, you know, I digress. They did improve this. This is technically more player power, so woohoo for us, hurrah. Arch Nemesis changed, talked about that. That's huge. Atlas Tree changed. They did make some things that are nicer, quality of life stuff, like not having to spec into the boss nodes. Harbinger buffed. This was a part of the game that basically died last league when they changed the Divine Exalt thing. And then the league mechanic itself, roguelike concept that takes 32 maps, 8 rooms of 4 floors, and a count-bound item slot. So let's look at this really quick. The idea is that you go on a journey like you would be playing Slay the Spire, and you go from node to node and have little miniature battles, and each node, each room gets you closer to a boss, and you fight 4 bosses total. So like Slay the Spire, there's 3. In this, there's 4. In Hades, you know, there are 3. I think they're mirroring it a lot after Hades. Yeah, with 32 total rooms taking 32 total maps, the chances of the average player actually completing this whole thing is like not that high. I think for a game like Path of Exile, personally, I think you need to make the league mechanic way more brain dead than this. And if I was GGG, I personally would not put as much effort into the league mechanic and would put a lot more effort into game balance and player balance and adjustments and skill updates and changes and reworks. But I understand why they're investing so much into these mechanics, because it gets, you know, the casual player really excited. And I'm kind of a casual, but I'm also hardcore enough to care about game balance. So I don't know. These are the account bound items. Sets an interesting precedent. This game doesn't really have account bound stuff. A lot of other games have account bound. But this is the first really. There's some things that are account bound that are like, you know, your watch stones or something, but largely this is new territory. This is fresh new territory for GGG and for this game. And they have the chance to completely break open the league. And they alone are kind of making me excited for the league, actually, because who knows what weird OP stuff will come out of this. And I'm a build creator. I love to play off-meta builds, and this does seem like an off-meta builders kind of vibe, having these weird extra things as your 11th item slot. So, did I miss anything? Some new skill gems. Oh, they reworked some unique items. Very exciting. They're adding new unique items, new boss fights. Of course, all that is usual. So, yeah. I guess that's it for me from the video. And they added a new game mode called Ruthless, which is actually very interesting. I kind of want to follow the trading for Ruthless, because extreme item scarcity mode. It's like, conceptually it's funny and interesting, but I don't have the hours in the day to commit to that. I much prefer to have a lot of value for my hours. Like every 30 minutes I want dopamine. I don't want to wait for freaking ever. Yep. That's it. Hope you guys are excited for the Forbidden Sanctum. Ooh. Bye.